Welcome, everyone. This is another one of my interviews with subject matter experts throughout the country. And today I have with me Jon Reider. He is the Director of College Counseling at San Francisco University High School. Welcome, Jon. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm thrilled to be here.
So this is for our UCLA College Counseling Certificate class. We have many students from all over the country and all over the world. Can you give us a little bit of information about your background and what your journey has been?
Sure. I have a very atypical journey in this profession in that most of the college reps that I meet or high school counselors, they may have been a tour guide at their college. They became an introductory level admissions officer. After a few years, they moved to the high school side. I grew up thinking I wanted to be a college professor. I thought I wanted to be a scholar. I didn't realize how painful it was to write books. So we're going to talk about the book that I helped write later. And I struggled mightily for many years to get a PhD. So I knew I loved teaching, and I taught college. And I was a graduate student at Stanford. It took me 12 years to get my PhD. And I finally got it. And nobody's read it. Nobody needs to read it. If anybody watching this is interested in the ideological repercussions of the French Revolution, you can order it from University of Michigan microfilms. But trust me, I mean, it's easier to take a sleeping pill. One day I'm walking across the main plaza at Stanford. If some of you have been there, it's vast. And normally during the school year, it's quite occupied with students and bicycles going back and forth. But this is Christmas vacation, and it's empty because all the kids have gone home. I'm walking in one direction towards a building where I would get the mail for the course that I was teaching. And walking the other direction towards me is the then still new dean of admission named Jean Fetter, whom I knew for obvious other things we've done together. And I said, what are you doing here? You're the dean of admissions. You're supposed to be out recruiting, visiting high schools. And I knew, and she knew, there was Christmas vacation, and all the recruiting for the year is done. Right? You're at home. Schools are closed. There's no recruiting to be done. And so she took that appropriately, and she said to me, have you ever thought of doing college admissions? I said, I don't know. What's involved? She says, call my secretary. Make an appointment, have lunch. So I did all those things. And she hired me. She was trying to find a different kind of admissions officer. She was very sensitive to the presence of Harvard on the other side of the country. And that Harvard had a very experienced, and still has an extremely experienced admissions staff. They kept people for years and years and years. And Stanford had not, with one or two exceptions. And she thought somebody older. At this point, I was 36. I had a PhD. I had college teaching experience. I had young children. The odds of my running off to, find fame and fortune somewhere else were very modest. But she also promised me, she said, if you do this for 5 years, with your work at Stanford and knowing who you are, you could get a job as a dean of admissions at a small liberal arts college or something like that. I never aspired to that. So I ended up staying 15 years at Stanford in admissions, progressively rising up to different levels of responsibility, having various unusual hats. I was in charge of international students. I was in charge of recruiting math stars, which were really, the amazing kids who dream in math problems. And the math department never has enough of. Everybody else thinks those kids are really weird. But I loved them, and I learned how to find them. That was the key thing, is finding them and getting them to come. It took a while. And I also enjoyed a lot teaching the younger people. My teaching function came into training the youngsters, and that was a lot of fun. A lot of the people I trained are now off in the world as deans of admissions themselves, and making decisions on my kids, hopefully with a generous heart. And then one of my territories, as everyone knows, admissions officers usually have territory. One of my territories was San Francisco, because I'd grown up in San Francisco, in fact, 6 blocks from where I'm currently sitting in my office. And one of the high schools I visited was University High School, and the guidance counselor knew me. And she told the head of school that, that admissions officers made good college counselors, But the young ones would just get chewed up by the parents, because the parents at a school like this, they just run roughshod over people. And that the older ones could handle the parents, but they would never leave their school because they were so embedded that they loved it. And she told me this. She said, like, the guy at Stanford will never leave Stanford. And she told me this. I said, you don't know, but I'm really tired of reading files. We were getting more and more. The year I left Stanford, in the year 2000, we had 19,000 files. Here's a quiz for your students. How many applications did Stanford have last year? Many of you know. The answer is 44,000 and change. 2+ times as many. Now, yes, the staff is larger. The school is not. So the admit rate goes from, 12 or 13% to famously under 5 this year, although with the wait list, they probably got up to 5. That's amazing, right? I couldn't have done it. So I left at the right time. And people ask me, how could you leave Stanford? You have all this power, to say yes and no, and you live, you die, that sort of thing. And that's actually highly overrated. It really doesn't give you much pleasure. And I said I left by putting my left foot in front of my right foot and vice versa. And now I don't have to say no to people I don't know. Be amazed at how it comes back to haunt you. Oh, you worked at Stanford in 1994. You turned down my child. I say, no, I fought for your child. I argued. I have no idea, of course, 20 years ago. I fought for your child. I was outvoted. I was a lonely person holding out on top of the mountain. People can, by this time, smile at that. But I say I don't have to say no to people I don't know. And I think best of all, and I think most of your students in the class, whether they're in schools or outside of schools, can appreciate this. I see my customers more than once.
Right.
As I get to know them now for 18 months, from January of their junior year through June, and often beyond. I just heard from a college sophomore of mine from 2 years ago who had transferred and was very happy at her new school and wanted to thank me. She left high school, very angry, very bitter because she hadn't gotten her goal. And now she's at a totally different school. And I think she's also wised up. And that's a great pleasure. So I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. Although I like to joke with parents. And I say, I have the second most difficult job in San Francisco. And they always bite. And they say, well, what's the most difficult job? I say it's running the San Francisco Muni, the bus and subway system, which is always on the fritz and always complaints and never worked right. And I've always said that for years. So a year ago, I actually had a parent who did that job and who was the head of the Muni. And he was a lovely guy. And I said, I think your job is harder than mine because, you take all this public heat. He says, oh yeah, but I have all these people who work for me and I can just blame them. He says, you don't have anybody to blame. I said, good point. So it's been a good ride. I really like it. And it's very fulfilling to be involved with kids at this crucial, and families actually, at this stage of their lives. So it's a lot about my background, but I'm a little older than most people in this profession. So there's more background than for some other people.
Well, I think that is important. And I've been both a counselor, I've been at the public schools and, worked with Avid and things like that. But as an independent now, I get much more time one-on-one with students than I ever would have, and their parents at the same time than I ever would have when I was in the public schools. So yeah, there's definitely some.
I really admire those hardworking public school counselors because they have loads. I mean, there's 2 of us full-time for 100 kids. And I don't do anything else. Mm-hmm. The kids come in, I'm sorry to bother you, Jon. I said, what do you think I do for a living? This is my job. Bother me. Mm-hmm. Have I read 4 versions of your essay? Give me a 5th until we get it right. And, I know people who work in the public schools around here. I consider them saints. I couldn't do it. I get too frazzled, but they're calm and methodical and they're caring and they don't have the resources of time. And I have a budget. I don't have to. Can I afford to go to NACAC? It's never an issue. Can I afford Naviance? Can I take a college rep out to lunch on the school? Yeah, I can do any of that. I didn't worry. And it's great. I'm very spoiled. So the public school people can't do any of that.
Right.
And very little of it. And so I have a lot of respect for them. A lot of respect.
And that's where the term guidance really comes into play, because that's our role as a public school counselor. A lot of time is just providing resources, providing a structure, and then having, empowering students to, you know, be their own self-advocates. So you worked on this book. You helped co-author the book, Admission Matters, that we use in the UCLA classes. What motivated you to write this book?
Well, I always wanted to write a book. I mean, I thought writing a book was something intellectuals should do. And, but I never had the time, and I didn't have the motivation. Geez, I had this full-time job. And so one day, I think this is about 2006 or something like that, I get a galley from a publisher, Josie Bass, of a draft of a book by two women I've never heard of who live up in Davis, California. One of them works for UC Davis, the other one's a local journalist. And they'd written this book on college admissions. And I liked it. I thought it was really good. Their heart was in the right place. They were really trying to be helpful, and they had talked to a lot of the right people. I could see from their references. It was a book with soul. They were new. They hadn't done this on either the high school side or the college side. And so I don't know how the publisher found me. I don't know. And they sent it to me, and they said, would you make comments? Is this worth publishing? I don't know. How do you decide what's worth publishing? I thought it played a role. I thought there was a room in the intellectual life of the profession for this. I made a lot of comments, very careful, detailed comments. And Sally and I talked about this a lot. And there's a tendency when you're new to the profession to want to find generalizations. Mm-hmm. Colleges treat the SAT like this. Well, the real answer is some colleges do this and some colleges do that. I mean, just take something like score choice or super scoring or anything, kind of standard things. So they tended to exaggerate. So I fixed all that and sent it back. Josie Bass sent me a fairly small check, not worth my time. And they sent me a copy of the book when it came out. Actually, I had to push them to get me a copy of the book. And in the introduction, the authors, Sally and Marion, had thanked three anonymous readers for their very helpful suggestions. So I knew I was one of those three. To this day, I have no idea who the other two are. I don't think they do. I could find out, but I don't really care. So a couple years later, I'm at a WACAC conference in San Jose. I'm wearing my name tag, and I bump into this woman I've never seen before named Sally Springer. And hi. And I don't know if she knows why, she says, I'm about to work on the second edition, and I'd like your help this time openly, because you were so helpful on the first edition. I said, how do you know it was me? I thought I was anonymous. She says, everybody knows who you are. That was very sweet. I was very sweet. And we hit it off. So we worked on the second one, and I felt very enriched and kind of able to use my knowledge outside of the immediate sphere of my own personal experience. And she was very absorbent, and we worked very well together. And of course that put us into the third edition, where she brought on her and my very good friend, Joyce Morgan, whom I'd worked with back east and knew well. And now, as you may know, but your students, we have pretty much finished the text for the fourth edition.
Yay.
Very much updated. There's a whole new chapter on the SAT. I realize there are certain things on the SAT, old and new, and ACT, which are coming up in the air. Hard to know what to say about the coalition at this point, but we really try to do our best, knowing that anytime now you write a book about or anything, you're just, punching a hole in the ocean, and the ocean will change. So we hope, Sally knows more for sure, but I think we hope to come out next spring. There's a kind of cycle in admissions work where it's good to, April, May, it's like flowers coming up, books come out at the same time. So it's been a lot of fun. And I like to be able to read the text and say, oh yeah, I said that. What's funny is that there are moments in the book which you as a reader and your students as a reader would not know, which are self-referential. Mm-hmm. For example, there's a story about a parent who steamed open his kids' SAT scores. This is way, way back when, because obviously SAT scores come electronically now, but in the old days, as the old timers will remember, they came in an envelope. And this person's kid was away at camp, and he was impatient, so he used a tea kettle and steamed the letter open, tearing the flap of the envelope just a little bit, which his kid dutifully noticed when she came back from camp. Well, that was me. So the ability to tell, there are a few other things. When the book says, we know a guidance counselor who does X, I won't say that's always me, but it's probably me. Sally and Joyce have indulged me that I was able to put a little hidden part of my personality in it. So I get a little pleasure from that.
That's delightful. And yeah, we're looking forward to, I have interviews set up with Joyce and with Sally. So that'll be delightful. So now that you've worked on both sides of the desk, both from the college and the high school, what have you learned as a high school counselor that you wish you had known when you were on the college side?
We were enormously cavalier about how much sweat and agony and just kind of turmoil kids went through. We saw completed applications, and the completed applications for a place like Stanford were very, very polished. We had no idea, for example, except anecdotally, about the whole test prep madness. And test prep, I'm in favor of test prep, by the way. I got test prep for one of my own kids. I refer kids to test prep companies around here all the time, because we don't do it at the high school. Some high schools do offer it. We don't. I don't want to. But there are people who do it very well and very professionally. And it counts. Hey, the colleges care. I mean, most colleges care still. But it's madness what kids go through, because it has nothing to do with education. Right. How you fill in little boxes doesn't say anything about kind of a mind you have or whether you enjoy learning and what you enjoy learning. But we know that the colleges use it. So I didn't have any idea how much of a business that was. I had only a little inkling of what the IEC world was, and of the great range of competence and experience. And I count a number of independent counselors as personal friends. I refer people to independent counselors without hesitating all the time, because I don't do that. People call me and say, can we hire you? And I say, no, because school doesn't want me to do that, and I actually don't want to do it either at this point. So I have no problem with the fact that there are very, very good people out there. I didn't realize how widespread it was and how variable it was. I wished I had known how much turmoil goes into the pursuit of the most difficult, most rigorous program. I was so innocent. I used to say, God, how many talks did I give on Stanford's behalf in 15? We want the most rigorous program. If it's IB, fine. If it's AP, I loved IB. I still love IB. It was just honors courses. Whatever your high school offers, we're very willing to interpret that. But we want to see that you've been a hard charger and really gone after it. And that was Stanford doctrine. It's standard doctrine at a lot of places. And I see now what kids do to punish themselves. It's not healthy. So when I sit in on the college reps visiting our high school, and I get about 120 here, I don't sit in on them all because that's a lot of time, but I sit in on some. And some of the young ones, I'll hear them say, we want you to take the most rigorous program you can. And I will jump out of my chair in my office and go out into the area where there's a conference room table. And I will say very gently to this 22-year-old rep who was not born when I started doing missions, and I will say, I know that's what you mean. You actually want to add words like, you want to take the most rigorous program that makes sense for you, that is consistent with your other time commitments and your mental health and your general well-being and your ability to go out on a Friday night to the movies. And they always say, oh, yeah, that's what I meant. I said, yeah, but here's where I throw in the zinger, and this is me. I said, that's what you meant, but it's not what you said.
Right.
And my kids are hearing that. They're, oh, Jon, don't pick a fight with the Yale rep. We want to go to Yale, Jon. Just shut up. I'm not worried about the Yale rep. The Yale rep, very smart woman. I'm like, trouble, I can say what I want to say to her. So those are some things that, and we were so cocky, we thought we knew all this stuff. I thought there's a difference between a 750 and a 730. Now, a lot of colleges, that doesn't matter. At Stanford, it mattered. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between a 3.9 and a 3.8. We want the kid with a 3.9 as long as they're a human being. Doesn't make any difference. Do you know how closely together the kids are in a high school like this? And in a public high school with, a Lowell High School with 700 kids in the class? The top kid and the number 150 kid are this far apart. And we were making distinctions as if they were real. We can make these distinctions because we were admissions officers and we had the right to make them. And after a while, you get pretty confident that you know what you're doing. Those are some long-term lessons I try to keep in mind. And I try and pass them on to the admissions reps who come in. And they're willing to entertain my stories.
Well, I think those are very, very valuable thoughts and advice. It does. It helps when we have those perspectives from both sides. And you mentioned NACAC and WACAC, and that's why I think the professional organizations are so key, because we do come together. And one of the things I want students to do is serve on committees and, in these organizations, because that helps us all to be able to.
I have done that, and I was the chair. I was on a committee and then the co-chair of something that NACAC called the Committee on Current Trends and Future Issues, or vice versa. I never got the name right. And we were just able to think out loud. It was good fun. But I met people on the executive board from all kinds of institutions I would never have run into, and high school people, and all kinds of interesting folks. And there's still connections for me in the profession. So I completely endorse that suggestion. And you learn. And for me, it was very much a learning experience.
Definitely. So what one other piece of advice would you share with our UCLA students who are embarking on this road toward being a college counselor? Some may be a counselor in different areas, or they're just starting off in the counseling field. So what piece of advice would you give them?
I think probably the best advice I found when people have given me in life is the advice that you don't want to take, because it goes against your grain, it cuts too close, it's painful. And I've thought about this a lot because it's an issue in the school, but I've been doing this long enough that I can pull it off. But I think a lot of younger counselors can't do it as easily because they want to be liked. Mm-hmm. I think it's also a problem in some cases for independent counselors, particularly ones starting off, because they want to be liked. They want the kids to like them. And of course, they want to be hired. The parents are going to pay them. This is your daily bread, and I respect that. I don't have to worry about it. The school provides me my clientele. I don't have to hustle. I got it easy. But here's the advice, is that in the long run, you don't do a kid or a family any favors by flattering them. Oh, Cindy, I can certainly see you at Stanford. I know a former Stanford admissions officer. I will talk to him for you. And Cindy might well be a very good student and have the numbers, but you might know that she doesn't have everything that it takes, because it's crazy what it takes. But it's easy to do that. And it's flattering the kid. It raises hope. If it happens, and it does happen, comes through, everybody's happy and there's hugs and kisses and a nice bottle of wine shows up. But mostly it doesn't happen. And then there's disappointment, and there's a sense sometimes of being misled. And then the counselor is in an awkward position because you didn't see it coming. Hey, I don't see it coming. I have kids that I think should get in, and I know this business pretty well, and I don't get it right all the time. Not all the time, but frequently. And, I have various ways of talking about that. One of them, of course, is to have, another set of colleges are ready to go. So I stress with the kids that they do something. I learned this from a friend of mine in San Diego, Marjorie Shavitz, who's written another very good book called Admissions Possible, which I like, and which I helped her with a little bit. And she taught me about emotional planning. And what a lot of us think about, okay, here's your early decision choice. It's really bold and a reach. I don't use the word reach, by the way. I use the word difficult. I believe in telling the truth. It's so easy to say reach.
I hate that term, actually. I don't like the
your class can see in the background, I have a bookcase, and on top of the bookcase, there's various mugs and there's things. On another bookcase on the other side of the room, I have a box of cornflakes. Long story. And I say to the kids, they say, well, this is my reach goal. I said, oh, by the way, would you reach me that box of cornflakes? And they stand up. It's not very high. I can reach it. I'm now shrunk to 5'2", but I can reach the cornflakes. I say, reaching is easy. I said, let's use real language. Real language says it's difficult. Reaching is a euphemism. Covers that over. Yeah. So I don't say safety either.
I don't either.
Guess what? I've been wrong about safety schools. I've had kids who don't get into safety schools. And if you haven't been wrong about a safety school, you haven't been doing this for a long.
That's exactly right.
Who knew that Colby was going to go up 47% in 1 year? How can you know that? They didn't know that. Anyway, so the typical response to knowing that the kid's early decision choice is perhaps unrealistic is say, well, let's go to work on all the supplements. Let's get the supplements done by Thanksgiving. And, so if good news comes, you don't feel bad because you did the work, but you got in. If the news is bad, you're ready to roll. It's not bad advice. That's not wrong. I do that where I think it's necessary. Oh, shit.
I am testing the emergency system.
Sorry about this. Can you cut this out?
Yeah, I can cut it out.
We have a new emergency system, and they can buzz into any classroom. And take out my four-letter word, too. I apologize.
I will.
I was not counting on that.
Yeah, I'll take it out.
I'll tell her. She'll laugh. She's a good student. Anyway, to get restarted. So what emotional planning is helping the kid anticipate the bad news. And I do this all the way along. I sit with them in October, and they say, okay, I'm applying early to Northwestern. I say, I'm applying early to Northwestern, and I say, I don't think it's a crazy thing to do, but I think it's a real long shot. And I think, we use the term long shot in the book, which is fine. And so we're going to have some other schools. How are you going to feel in December if you don't get in? Early in October, they say, well, I'll be disappointed, but I'll be okay. I say, you know what? It's okay to kid me, because I've been around the block. It's very bad if you kid yourself. You will not feel okay. You feel okay today, and you're being honest with me, and I take you seriously. But several things are going to happen between now and December 15th. One is you're going to do all this work. The essays, and Northwestern isn't terribly difficult supplement, but they care a lot about how you do it. And of course, some other schools, they're very intricate. And you're going to do that, and then you're going to wait for 6 weeks. And all of your classmates who've applied early, which here is a lot, are going to wait for 6 weeks. And it builds, and the anticipation builds, and your awareness of the bad odds recedes because everybody's hoping. You know that Christmas is coming. You're going to get something good for Christmas because that's what Christmas is about. And that timing works. I said you have to be prepared because if you do get bad news, I let you mourn. You can be sad. You have a right to be sad. You put a lot of hard work into it, as did I, but it's your work, and now we have to get going again. And I will help you. And you can have 48 hours to be sad. And after 48 hours, we get started. So I try to prepare them for that. And a lot of kids tell me that I was exactly right. It was very painful. And it just helps to anticipate. It sounds like an oxymoron, emotional planning. We do retirement planning and vacation planning and investment planning and that sort of thing. This is sort of thinking far ahead. Your emotions are what? They're spontaneous. They're free, right? How can I plan my emotions? And the answer is, yes, you can. Within certain constraints and certain realities, you can actually do that. So I think that's a good piece of counseling lore. Not everybody's going to hear it. You can say it. And one thing you learn as a counselor is you say things, you say it over and they're not going to hear you. But It's your job. Your job is to do your best, not to coddle people. You've got to be honest. I gave a talk at a conference last June with two of my independent school colleagues from the Midwest, and the title I gave the talk, the title was "No Collusion with Delusion," which was a line from my father, who was a psychoanalyst, which is, somebody comes in and says they're Jesus Christ. You don't say, "Oh, really? Well, tell me about your mother." You don't pretend that somebody is actually Jesus Christ. That's part of the problem you have to solve. And so that was his slogan, "No collusion with delusion." The subtitle was, "Why won't they listen to us?" The sign up for this topic, this is among independent school counselors, was so enormous that they wanted us to do it twice, which cut into my style because I couldn't go to something else. But of course we did it. So that kind of honesty is hard because you don't believe in me. I can do it. I'll be all right. I want you to believe in me. And they want that. And so you have to find that kind of narrow line between honesty and support. And each kid has got a different line, and each parent. So, advice from the so-called wise.
Well, I think that fits into one of the other things that we talk about is facing the rejection, because so many of our students, this is the first time they've ever really been rejected. They've always had this consolation for whatever sport team or whatever, and so there's no mom and dad aren't gonna. It's very difficult for them. So I love that term. I hadn't heard it before, but
I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, the top student in my class, and this is a highly respected, nationally known high school, the top student in my class has been turned down at all kinds of different schools. Last year was Stanford, 1 year was Yale. It's been all over the place. Columbia. They all ended up fine. I mean, nobody ended up, having to, do poetry on the street. But one of the things I say, and I say this to parents get it more easily. I say, think about your adult lives and all the kind of challenges that you had in your life. And everybody's life is different. We've all faced certain things, not the least of the aging and mortality of our parents and maybe other loved ones, and other kinds of, divorce and illness and, God forbid, drug addiction and all kinds of, life is full of this. I mean, no one wants this. But I said, if the worst thing that ever happens to you in your long life is at the age of 18, you're turned down by some college, you're going to lead a long and happy life. And you really will. And at 18, it looms really large. Your point's extremely well taken. It's all in front of you. It's the only thing you have. And you put so much into it. That's another story, which is, why has our society made this such a big deal? That's for my next book, but we're not there yet. But it's very sad, and I think what's hard is to give them perspective. Most parents get it, because in even a happy family by conventional definitions, stuff goes on. So,
right. Well, and that touches on the whole concept of what really is a best fit. It's in, Peter Van Buskirk, I've met with him and done, done his thing. And that's just like, you want to go to the school that wants you as much as you want them, and just trying to find that. And so I think that's part of our role as counselors is to help broaden that perspective. And especially, and I know a lot of our international counselors, it's like it's on the U.S. News and World Report, it's the top 12 schools or nothing at all. And there's just such a vast opportunity, or taking a gap year and, introducing that as a concept. And those kinds of things are just so key. And that's why the role that we play, like you at your high school, and all our students in all their different capacities, is just so vital in all of this.
Can I give you my personal take on the concept of fit?
Yes,
I
would love to hear it.
And I'm going to ask you, since we are on camera, I'm going to ask your forbearance, and if you want to cut this out later, you can. Here's a moccasin. Moccasin. It's a size 7 medium men's. I have no idea what your feet are like. I doubt you could wear this comfortably. You'd want a woman's size, and if you have a different kind of foot. Fit, when we use it coldly in the singular, suggests there's one ideal counselor, there's one ideal school out there for you.
I agree.
That's the quote, best fit. Now, when people use the term, they mean it well, because just as you said in your question, don't look at just the top 12 schools, because that's just the brand names that are being advertised. Find a school. I like to use the word that would suit you, but I also like to do the plural. And here we get on the whole problem of early decision. Joyce Slayton Mitchell, who is all over the NACAC listserv, and she and I have a long history, but she wrote a book with, I think, an unfortunate title. She now reproduced it with a different title. But the original title was, How Do You Win the Heart of the College Admissions Dean? And if you ever knew Fred Hagedorn, who was the famous dean at Stanford and Princeton, winning Fred Hagedorn's heart was not really the agenda for him. Or Bill Fitzsimmons at Harvard, who's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, a brilliant guy. But winning his heart is not what the game is about. But what Joyce says in the book is you don't need a single first choice.
I agree.
You need 8 first choices. Of course, with so many people doing early, it narrows it down to 1, or in a few cases, multiple early action. So I stress that you just have to fall into very serious with your first choice. It's not romance. It's not the boy or the girl next door. It's not Cinderella's slipper fitting only on Cinderella's foot and not the evil stepsisters. And this is how college is not about Prince Charming. College is about going to college.
Right.
And so what I've done, I'm being more modest today, but I've done this in public more than once, and I'm not sure how it goes over. I've been told not to do it again, is I take off my sock. I have a sock on, and I stretch it. And I say, see, my sock, it would fit your foot. It might fit Shaquille O'Neal's foot, probably not him, but a lot of people's socks are elastic. And I think you should look at colleges as socks, not glass slippers, and have a lot of places in mind that it's okay to like to small varying degrees. And I'm very nervous when the kid comes back and says, oh, I saw Northwestern. I just loved it. How long were you there? 4 hours? The tour guide was good. I'll grant you. That was good. How many professors did you meet? Did you try to use the library? No, you don't do that on a college visit. So, the impression they have is very superficial. But that's all you can. I don't blame the kid. I mean, that's
right.
What you get on a college visit.
Right.
So I tend to downplay the romance factor in this. So I think in general the term fit is a benevolent term. It's better than going for number 1, 2, 3, and 4. As you probably know, and maybe some of your students do as well. In China, they think U.S. News is a government publication.
Oh.
Because in China, the government ranks the colleges. And if it says U.S. News, that's the government, right?
Right.
And we all know it's Bob Morse is the one guy with a fancy computer. It has nothing to do with the government. But they don't know that. So they're completely enthralled by that list. I'm sure that in your class you instruct on the value of rankings and
yes.
misuse of rankings and so on.
Yes.
Anyway.
Definitely. Well, I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I have a very similar feeling. Because what I do with my students is I tell them, because I have them do a survey, and we look at school enthusiasm, and this is a term that Steve Antonoff uses. It's like, if you want to go to school, if this is your desire, it's your intrinsic goal, then any number of schools are going to work for you, because you're going to make it happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. I think there are kids who at the very margins would not be entirely suitable for a certain school. I had a lovely kid last year, ordinary student, this being San Francisco. She had 2 gay dads who were great guys, and we all got along well. And for some reason, she had Pepperdine in her head. Well, I've had kids go to Pepperdine. I'm not against Pepperdine.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a feeling her dads would not feel very comfortable at Parents' Weekend. But that's for them to decide. I don't make that call. But I said to the girl, why don't you sort of find out kind of the atmosphere at Pepperdine? I would, if I had a conservative kid, which I have every once in a while, I would have no problem suggesting Oberlin or even Swarthmore. Fine, be the outlier. You're the outlier here. You can handle it. But if you don't mind and you're not a Mormon, but you want to go to Brigham Young, that's okay. Just know what Brigham Young is.
Mm-hmm.
So, be realistic about that. But I think I say very often, most kids should be successful at most colleges. It's important that they like where they're going, because just as some kind of rain falls in every adult life, some aspects of college turns out to be difficult. The roommate, the professor who doesn't explain it,
boyfriend, girlfriend,
all kinds of things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The scholarship, which doesn't get renewed, all kinds of stuff happens. So if you're feeling good about the place, you can surmount that. You can deal with it. If you're feeling, "God, how did I end up here?" then you lose that momentum, and you need that momentum to circumvent those things. So I want kids to like where they're going, and I want them to be enthusiastic. But I always stress that most of the important things that they're going to find out about college only are found out when they get there. Mm-hmm. And most of the experiences that will matter to them, speaking personally, one of my crucial experiences when I was an undergraduate at Stanford was a relationship I developed with a professor. And we're still friends. I mean, it's been quite a while. He hosted my birthday party this summer, and we're going out to dinner in a couple of weeks. We're still friends. He wasn't even there when I went to Stanford. He didn't come until I was a junior. How could I have applied to study with him? The idea of applying to study with somebody was completely foreign.
Mm-hmm.
It just had no meaning. So a lot of it, I often say, this is another line that I use with my families. I say, here you are, what is the most important thing in your life today, right now, tonight, that's influenced directly, indirectly by where you went to college? And sometimes people get it right on the first pass, but sometimes somebody raises a hand and says, well, I'm an engineer. I say, great. I said, where'd you go to college? And he says, UCLA. I said, of course. UCLA is the only college in the country which turns out engineers, right? I mean, nobody ever went to USC, God forbid, and became an engineer, much less Caltech or MIT or Stanford. And everybody laughs. I said, so what else is important in your life? My friends. I said, of course, your friends. And you made some friends in college, and all things being equal, you kept some of those friends. I said, that's great. Me too. Any particular friends? Light bulb goes on. Oh, the woman sitting next to me. Exactly. The color of your child's eyes depend on the fact that you both went to UCLA. Now, we know not everybody meets in college, okay? I didn't meet my wife in college. It's fine. But it's because you went to a college and then you went to the next step to that job, or who knows, somebody introduced you. It's happened in my case. And your college choice was indirectly crucial in your becoming a parent. And you can't know that in advance.
Right.
You don't plan for that. It just happens. And yes, when you're in your 40s and you've got a teenage kid and you're here in the auditorium listening to the college counselor, that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because you have a legacy or not. It's just because life does that. So again, keeping that kind of perspective is really, really valuable. And it also calms the parents down. Calming parents down is a big deal.
That's a big part of the job, isn't it?
Big part of the job. My former head of school said to me, I was complaining about some parent who was making my life difficult. And he said, Jon, they just love their kids. I said, yeah, I know they love their kids. I love my kids. He says, you love your kids. I said, they have a funny way of expressing it by pushing me around. He says, yeah, but that's the game. That's what you have to deal with. And that was very humanizing for me to realize that even when sometimes the parents are drastically unreasonable, drastically poorly informed, that can usually be fixed. What is the real deadline? Well, let's call the college and find out what the deadline is. I mean, as if I didn't know. But to remember that they love their children. So sometimes they love them too much, or they want to live their own success or failures as parents out through their kids. We know all those problems, but we have to hold on to the fact that they essentially at the core of their experience is one feeling.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have allergies. This is
definitely. It's that time of year. Well, This has been so great. Thank you so much, and appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing you at a future conference. So
I look forward to it also, and I look forward to seeing the YouTube. This was easy. You made it fun. I mean, it was easy to do. So.
Well, good. Well, I'll be back in touch.
I'll see you in Columbus with the other two.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm not going to be there, but I will.
Oh, you're going to do it by distance with them.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.